Okay, can you hear me okay? The back, is that all right? Well, thank you, everyone. I wanted this to be a little bit more of a discussion, maybe some participation. So when I ask questions, we do have swag to give out if you'd like to. It's not heavy, so he can throw them, Sam can throw them to you. I also have some other cool stuff, some water bottles. The guy who gave the prayer and blessed the speaker, could we give one to him right off the top for helping me out? Hey, thanks, appreciate it. And we also have some other cups as well. So one of the things I wanted to do is find out what you guys, are your business majors? Everyone who's a business major, will you raise your hand? Okay. If you're engineering, raise your hand. What's everyone else? Computer science? What else?
Media arts.
Media arts. Anything else?
Commercial music.
Commercial music. Okay. Yes?
Stats.
Stats? Okay. I took a stats emphasis. Good job. Awesome. Okay, so what I wanted to do is I was a BYU grad. I came here. My wife and I were going to the BYU at the same time. We came to the same theater. And I would sit and I would get all this information coming to me all the time from all my classes, and I always wondered, how do I prioritize it? And so I love to have people come in with a little bit of experience. And I've been working at SecurityMetrics for the last 18 years, and then I had a couple businesses before that. So I've done quite a few businesses, and so there's a couple other questions I want to ask you, and that is, how many of you have a business idea? How many of you have a really good business idea? Okay, some people said, of course I do. And then how many of you are thinking you're going to start a business with your business idea? Okay, so now the question is, how many of you would risk $500 on your business idea? Okay, how many of you would risk $5,000 on your business idea? How many of you would risk $10,000 on your business idea? Okay, we've only got one guy here, is that right? Okay. Now let me ask you a different question. If you had $10,000 in the bank, how many of you would risk $10,000 on your idea? Okay, okay, got more people. Okay, that's cool. It's just the risk is interesting, right? It's kind of interesting to go through and see that risk tolerance. When I was starting a business, I really, as I went through that process, I struggled in a couple areas, and those areas I just didn't know what to do, and I ended up spending months or years sometimes trying to figure out exactly what was going on and how to resolve some of these ideas. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. The first is coming up with your business idea. The guy right here who said, you're highly risk tolerant, how did you come up with your business idea?
I'm in the Entrepreneurship program, so I have an idea journal, and I probably have 150 or 200 ideas in there.
Okay, so do you have one specific one that you like the most?
I think there's 2 or 3 that,
2 or 3.
that I'm researching and working on right now.
Okay, so he's researching, okay. How about you, the girl up here in the jacket? Yeah. How did you come up with your idea?
I was living my life, and there was a big pain point that I thought I'd share.
Okay. And so that's great. That's exactly how I came up with my idea, big pain point. So I worked at WordPerfect Corporation. A lot of you may not have heard of WordPerfect. And at WordPerfect, we outsourced development to WordPerfect for Unix, and I worked in that company. And one day, we were setting up web servers. The web was brand new. This was 1997. The web was brand new. E-commerce was brand new. And we were pushing a product out on our website, and all of a sudden, the website wasn't working anymore. So somebody called and said, hey, what's going on? I went down and looked at the website, and I realized that somebody had hacked the website. So I went to my development guys. We had a lot of development guys in the company. I said, hey, what's the deal? And they said, we have no idea how they did that. And before that, every time, whenever I went to my development group, they always knew the answer. But when I went to them on hacking, they had no idea. And I thought, e-commerce is just starting, internet is hot, and nobody knows anything about data security. So it fascinated me, same thing. Saw a big problem and thought, hey, let's do something about it. So then time went on. I ended up leaving that business, and I went and worked in another company. And then all of a sudden I got a job offer, and it was a really good job offer. It was the most money I'd ever been offered. So I was really excited. I went to my wife and I said, hey, I got to go take this job. And she goes, you shouldn't. And I said, but this is working with Unix, which I really like. This is really fun. And she said, don't do it. So she told me that I should go start a business, and she felt that prompting. And so it took me about a week to figure out I should do that. And that's really when the idea took hold to me. As soon as I had the confirmation in my mind that I really need to do it and I committed, that's really when the idea solidified and I started to really go for it. And that's an idea that I want to present to you. There's lots of ideas, but it's really the commitment that really is tough. And I've noticed that in other entrepreneurs. I went and saw Jerry Atkin, who started SkyWest. And he told his story, and his story was fascinating. He started the company, went a year, lost $750,000, decided it wasn't going to work, went to go sell it, tried to sell it to a guy in Wyoming. The guy in Wyoming said, I don't want it. So he went with his brother-in-law in the bathroom. They said, let's just give it to him. So they went back. They said, okay, we'll give it to you. And he said, still don't want it. And he was committed, right? He was in trouble. And so he went to his rich uncle, and the rich uncle said to him, you know, if you can show me how you're going to make this succeed, then I'll do it. And so he went through and put it all on a spreadsheet, and he found that there was a way for him to do it. If he managed his debt properly, he could do it. And so he went back to the rich uncle, and the rich uncle said, okay, let's do it. Now they're doing $2 billion, I think, a year in revenues. But it was a commitment. I mean, it's an airline company. There's lots of airline companies, but it was really his commitment that made him successful. In February, we had a sales kickoff, and we had James Lawrence. Have any of you guys heard of James Lawrence? James Lawrence is the guy who did Ironmans, did 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days. Have you heard of this guy? He actually is from Calgary. I'm from Calgary. And he went to my same high school. So I went and I talked to him. And so he said, so tell me how that worked. I mean, did everything go right? You had 50 days. You were trying to you're trying to swim 2.1 miles, bike 118 miles, and then run 26 miles every day for 50 days. And he said everything went wrong. Right from the very beginning, everything went wrong. He tore his shoulder on the third day. So he had to swim basically with one arm as his strong arm for 47 days. I mean, the guy was just in trouble, but he was committed and he did it. And I think that's really, really interesting to see people's level of commitment. So once you get the commitment, the question I had is, how do I set up my business? How do I set up? Do I do an LLC? Do I do a C Corp? Does anyone have any ideas? Which is the best way to go on a business? LLC, C Corp, S Corp, any ideas for a t-shirt? Yes? LLC. Do you know? Starting out. Okay, and she's exactly right. Very easy to do, very quick. One of the things that, and we looked at doing that as well, one of the things that we did is we started in 2000, just before the dot-com boom. We thought we would go public fairly quickly, and so we did a C Corp. And the C Corp, I thought, was interesting because we could get founders stock. And that's one of the biggest problems I see with companies when they're starting is they don't have it set up properly, you don't have enough shares, and when it's time for you to get your company moving and get venture capital, you don't have enough stock in your company, and so you have to give away the majority of your company. And that's really worked well at SecurityMetrics. 18 years later, I still have the majority of the company, and that has been a benefit to us. The other thing I think that's important is financing. Does any of you have any ideas on financing? You've already got a t-shirt. Anyone? Yes?
For how to obtain financing?
Yeah, how to obtain financing.
You can do lots of different ways, I guess. It's seed round, angels, right? Series, you do series, you do venture, private equity. Some guys are actually doing credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so Under Armour, Google started off with credit cards, 8% credit cards. And then bootstrapping as well, another option.
Right. I think you should at least get a t-shirt for that. That's great. And there's just a lot of ways to do it, right? One of the things that we've done is we did some angel investing, and that worked out really well as well, but not a lot. Another thing I want to talk about is when I started my business, I wasn't expecting it to get, there's times you get really frustrated in your business, and emotions really take hold. And a lot of that was centered on employees. So does anyone here have any ideas before you get into your business of how you're going to handle your employees, your employee management style? Does anyone have any ideas? Anyone heard of Jack Welch and GE? Okay, can somebody give me a summary of what GE is like? What's that? Jerry, you could, but yeah, I'll do it. So GE is famous for having a ranking style. They took the top 20% and said they were A players, the middle 70% were B players, and the bottom 10% were C players. And every year they would terminate the bottom 10%. The man's name was Neutron Jack, is what they called him. And he wanted a winning team, so it was all about going through the people and making sure everyone was as good as possible on the team. Has anyone heard about Toyota and what Toyota does? For a t-shirt? Okay. One of the things that Toyota does is they have the opposite viewpoint. They say, everyone has wisdom, everyone has been at the company, they have experience. They call it chi, and it's the experience of people on the front lines, and so they don't want to fire anyone. They want to keep everyone. They want a winning team, but they want to train people. So it's kind of the two opposites of the spectrum. And then in the middle, we kind of say, what is the best way to move towards a company? And there's all kinds of pressures that you get. There's times that you get new people in your business and they can do well, and then there's times you have existing people who are not doing well, and you have to kind of determine what you're going to do and are you going to keep them. And that is something that's hard to make those decisions. So you should have some of those ideas going on in your mind before you get into your business. The other thing that that happened in my business several times is we got stuck. We were going along, we were trying to get to the next level, and we couldn't get there, and so we got stuck. And so I had to go find people to go to. And who can tell me what some of the good places are to get information? Any ideas? Okay, the Rollins Center. Okay, I'm going to say that. What else? Yes?
I feel like the internet's always a good source.
Yeah, the internet, that's great. Great idea. One of the places I went to that was a little bit scary for me was going to UVU. I went to UVU and got some information from them, and that was great. Yes, do you have a comment up there too? No? Okay, all right. So UVU is also really helpful. And when I went to BYU, I met Jerry, who's on the front here, and he really helped us a lot in our business. And in fact, we've had him on our board ever since I met him. And one of the things I did at UVU is I met a lady there who helped us, and she brought in a guy that was an experienced entrepreneur, and he asked me the question, he said, so what's the most important part of your business? Is it making a better mousetrap or is it the selling? And I was working on the technical side, so of course I said building a better mousetrap, and he shook his head and said no. If you look at the difference between Novell and Microsoft, you'll see that Microsoft really has done well because they're selling, and their product revisions aren't good till about the third revision, but they own the market every time. And so I really took that to heart, and I went out and I tried to find and hire a salesman. And that was really interesting for me to do that. And one of probably the hardest things you're going to do in a company is try to get your revenues up. You need to be getting a good salesman. So one of the questions I'm going to ask you is, what are some of the qualities of a good salesman? Anyone have any ideas? Yes? Honesty. Great answer for a t-shirt. Let's give him a t-shirt. Yes?
To know their product.
They know their product. Another great answer. Yes?
Ability to find a need.
Okay? That's great. Yes?
Good listener.
Good listener. Awesome. Yes?
High emotional intelligence.
High emotional intelligence. Very good. Okay, thanks for helping, guys. Got all these. Yes?
Hard work ethic.
Hard work ethic. Really good. Yes?
Persuasive.
Very persuasive. Yes?
Able to connect with the person.
Okay? Yes? We're going to give away all the t-shirts right here. This is awesome. Yes, you.
Able to listen to feedback. Like someone that listens but also is willing to change for example.
Yeah, that's great. Yes?
Good at overcoming objections.
Okay? Perfect. Are you guys salesmen? This is awesome. Well, let's get feedback. Yes?
Someone who wants to work hard to sell and
Yeah, okay. Yes?
Being willing to recognize that your idea might need improvement.
Yes, very good. And to bring that back to the company and have the company make the changes. Yes?
Gratitude.
Okay, that's good for everyone, isn't it? That's awesome. Awesome answer. Okay, yes?
Knowing the vision of the creator or the CEO.
Now say that again.
Knowing the vision
Okay? Okay? So you've all given great answers. I'm going to add one more answer to you, okay? I'm going to throw in the mix. And that is, he should be excited about his quota. At SecurityMetrics, it's all about generating revenue, and we've got to get our revenues higher than last year. So one of the things you want to look for, you need a good communicator, you need someone with a good work ethic, you need all of those things. They're all good answers. But you also need somebody that's really excited about their quota. And they should be excited about not only hitting their quota, but getting great commission once they reach their quota and going on to the next level. So when you get in those conversations with salesmen, which is going to happen, you need to make sure that you're hearing those kinds of answers from them as well. Okay. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about legal. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but most of you probably haven't had any legal problems, right? In this part of your life, everything's been pretty smooth sailing. And you hear about legal problems in companies, and you think, what is the problem with that company? Why do they have legal problems? They shouldn't have legal problems, right? That's the way I thought about it when I was sitting in your seats. And but there's a lot of things on the legal side that you're maybe not aware of. And one of them is that laws come out and then nobody has to notify you. So one of the things that we did at SecurityMetrics is we gave fax notices because we were dealing with compliance. And if people didn't get their compliance and update it, they would be subject to fines. So we would fax them. Turns out that a couple years after we started to do that, there was a new law that said you couldn't fax people without their permission. So all of a sudden we were in legal trouble. And we didn't know. We weren't trying to do anything wrong, but we did something that was a problem. And we also, so one of the things we did is we went out and we hired an external attorney, and that really helped us. That was so efficient. We paid very little per month, and we got great benefits from our legal people, and they helped us write really good contracts. And we actually had a legal battle with a very large customer, and it was the person locally here in Orem that had written the contract for us, and that contract worked. And we were able to defend ourselves based on the contract. So one of the things that I think people struggle with is this concept of legal. I don't need to worry about legal, it's no big deal. But legal is a big deal. The other thing I want to talk to you about is what is the, we're LDS, we gave a prayer at the beginning of this meeting, which is great, this classroom. And so one of the questions I have for you is, what can you expect, what help can you get in your business by being a member of the church? Yes?
We automatically have a network of Mormons that can be your mentors, your friends.
Yes, very practical answer. That's exactly right. And people who have a good work ethic too, right? Typically, we typically see that. Any others? Yes?
The spirit guide you, always.
Okay, perfect. Yes?
Extremely optimistic.
Okay, that's right. Yes?
Emphasis on self-reliance.
Emphasis on self-reliance. That's a great answer. Any others? Yes?
High moral code of ethics.
Okay, that's right. Are we getting close on T-shirts? Almost, yes. And that's exactly right. And I like guiding by the Spirit. I thought that was a great answer. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I have run across as I've been doing it, is I felt prompted to do the business, and so you kind of think, well, everything should go okay. But everything didn't go okay. In fact, we struggled a lot in a lot of different ways. And you run into certain situations where you're hiring someone, and that's where I felt inspired probably the most, is where we're hiring somebody, we're trying to decide, and you can get help to decide who to hire. But there's also times beyond that, and I'll tell you one story that I had. We had been working with, we got the biggest contract in the world pretty much. It was a very big acquirer partner, and we had worked with them for 4 years, and we'd done a really good job. And our revenues had doubled every year as we had this big acquiring partner. And they all of a sudden decided they wanted to push us out and do their own product. And so we had a contract with them, and it was a contract with a local legal person, and she had written a good contract. And they thought, well, once we terminate our contract with SecurityMetrics, all of our merchant base will just follow and they'll come with us. And so they did that, and all their merchant base didn't go with them, they stayed with SecurityMetrics because our hold times were in seconds and theirs were in minutes. And so they decided they were going to sue us. And so they sued us, and they were an $11 billion corporation, and we at the time were about a $20 million corporation. And it was really scary, for me especially. And so we went years in a legal battle with these guys, and we hadn't done anything wrong. In fact, the problem is we'd done something right. We had kept their customers because they liked the service we'd offered them. And so we went right down to the wire, and we had done all of this work. We spent millions of dollars in legal fees. And all of a sudden, we come down to this last day where we're going to have the hearing with the judge. And on our side, I was the witness, right? Because I was coming up. I didn't want to have all my other people at work come into this. I wanted to protect them from that. And so we came in and we said, okay, who's their witness? So we came in and they said, Brad, you're their witness too. And all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh. The pressure started to get to me, right? All of a sudden I thought of all my friends, my wife, my family, my kids, and all of the people at SecurityMetrics, and I started to feel the weight, and I started to feel like I was going to implode. And then as I started to get this feeling, I thought, hey, you know what? I'm a child of God. That primary song actually was pretty cool. I am a child of God, and He does love me, and I'm worthy, and I can ask for the Spirit to be with me. And I did ask for the Spirit to be with me, and I was comforted. And when I was comforted, that was the biggest blessing I could get at that time. And I had to sit there, and they cross-examined me for a day. And any word I said, if they could take it the wrong way, they would try to take it the wrong way. But I was lucid in what I was doing, and I understood it, and I think that was just a blessing from Heavenly Father. So I am really grateful for the gospel in my life, and it's been a huge benefit to me, and it's blessed me in so many ways. And I'm grateful for that. So one of the things that I'm going to do, because when I came to these, I never saw a spouse get up, is my wife has been through this entire journey with me for the last 18 years. And so I thought I'd just have her come up and tell you kind of some of her perspectives of being an entrepreneur or being married to an entrepreneur for the last few years.
Wow, this is amazing. Can you hear me? Because I don't have a microphone now.
Oh.
But I can talk loud. Is that okay? There's so much here. I can't get close to it.
Here, take.
Can I take this?
Yeah, just take mine.
I promise I won't be here too long. We'll share. This is interesting because I was a student here too, and I spent a lot of time in this classroom. I think it's the first time I've been back in a really long time. I went to BYU and majored in finance, and so I think I always joke I got into the Marriott school when it was easy. I think I have great respect for you guys because I think it's a lot harder than it was back in the day. But I kind of fought Brad on this. I was like, I don't really know that I have much to add, but I can tell you that this has been a really amazing experience. And as you're thinking about your ideas, and I always have a million ideas too, but then I always come down to, we only have one business we have to worry about keeping alive, so some of my ideas might have to wait. But I relate to the concept of having a lot of really good ideas and seeing a need and wanting to meet it. And I think that's been one of the most fun things that we've been able to do at SecurityMetrics is, and I respect Brad so much for what he's done, but I think the interesting part that stands out to me is that it did not go at all how we planned. So I'm just here to tell you that there's a movie I love called Dan in Real Life, and he says, plan to be surprised. So I would tell you to plan to be surprised. So all of your plans might change, but I also read another book recently by the creator of Dilbert, which is a comic strip, which I don't know if any of you have heard of, but he talked about his path to success, and he said the most important thing he did was to get prepared. And he just kept getting prepared, and I saw that with Brad and his preparation, and I think my preparation was fairly significant. I didn't end up working outside of the home for the most part, but I was well versed in a lot of business-related topics, and I think that was a blessing. But he said, I was prepared in lots of different areas, psychology, human resources, just every little thing you can do to get some life experience in any area, not just business, I would recommend to you, because he said, when luck finds you, and we can agree that we call it blessings, he called it luck, but when you are blessed by our Heavenly Father and that blessing comes your way, you're prepared to hopefully make something of it. And we initially thought this would be a business that would be running out of our basement on the internet, because we thought, this internet's cool, and people seem to be making tons of money on the internet, and they just have servers and people come and buy stuff. Well, it ended up, it's not in our basement, obviously, and there's a few more employees than we ever dreamed we would have, and it's taken a lot longer than we thought. You know, I think sometimes you think, pie in the sky, I've got a great idea, and it's just gonna take off, and sometimes there's really hard times when you gotta really believe in your commitment to this idea, because it did not take off for us, and we're still nowhere near where we thought we might be, but I think we've learned a really important lesson too, which I would commend to you, is just patience, and then, you know, keeping your feet on the ground, because once you've been through this process, and I would pray for humility too, because sometimes things are going really well and it's tempting to think, oh yeah, by this time next year we're gonna have it made, and that doesn't always happen. And you know what, I think you get the perspective that it's okay that it didn't, and in the end, I think some of the biggest blessings, and I wrote down a couple of them so I wouldn't forget, have been the people. And I think that being able to build a company with a culture where people are valued and cared about, to me, and I know to Brad, has been one of the most awesome things that could have happened, is just all these people that we feel like we've been able to do some little thing to improve their lives, giving them employment, giving them experience, where then, yeah, sometimes they leave, and recently we just had some people quit, and it was sad to see them go, but they're getting money that they would have never gotten if they hadn't been able to get some good experience first. And so we feel like we've made a difference. And so I think I've been heavily involved in trying to build the culture of our company, and I work on events actually now, but you know, just a place where people feel valued, people feel loved, and they feel like they can grow and they're cared about. And my hat's off to Brad for what he's done in that regard too. But also remember now that you don't have the skills, all the skills you're gonna need maybe, but I've seen such a change in him as he's gone through this process. You know, he was a self-proclaimed nerd and just a computer programmer and developer, and not really a people person at all. He was really happy, just spread out in his office with computer parts everywhere and nobody talking to him. And now he's genuinely interested in people, he cares about people, and I think that's one of his greatest strengths. And had you told us that, I think he might have been surprised. And I was a little surprised how much he loves people now, and how much, what's the word? Just satisfaction, I think, and joy he gets from being able to do what he does to bless the lives of people. So I just want to tell you that if you get the chance, like he said, got to get committed to the idea, because the road could be short, it could be long, it could be very hairy, it can be very annoying, and lots of things, but get committed, because it's just like when you get married, you take a job, you do lots of things, get the confirmation about what you're doing with your life. And I love that we can talk about that here in this room, because that's what you're going to go back to, because I promise you'll need to go back to that. You know, you'll need it when you decide to become a parent. You'll be going, why did I do this? And you'll need it when you start a business, because there'll be moments when you're thinking, why did I do this? And luckily they didn't come at the same time. Usually I was up and going, we got this, and he's like, no, we don't, or vice versa, you know. But you have to go back to that feeling of, is this where I felt like I should go, and am I on the right path? And that's going to get you through the tough times. So thanks so much for your time and for listening, and I think we're going to have some questions now, right?
Yes.
Let's do that if anyone has anything they want to ask. Anyone have any questions for Brad?
Anyone have any questions for me?
You have the chance to ask questions of a really awesome guy who has a lot of good life experience. So anything about starting a business, right over here.
How did you manage raising a family at the same time and the stress of that?
Oh yeah, raising a family at the same time. It was interesting. We just had our fourth, actually our third child was a month old when their company ended, the one company had, and they had to lay everyone off, and we were in that time of transition. And I think I love what someone said about LDS people being optimistic. I think there was just a natural sense of optimism. I had a lot of confidence in Brad, and as we were young, and I think there's some advantages to being young, so I commend you for starting early. But there were a lot of tough times, but one thing I'll say that Brad has always made a priority is keeping a balance between your work and your home, and he's home every day, and he's said oftentimes, I could be at work all day long and all night long because there's so much to get done, and he comes home every night and has dinner with our family, and has always made a priority, even when we had not very much money. We were very creative, but we would take vacations. I think that's important, you know, to take time off and to relax, and and to spend the time with your kids, and he's done a really good thing in that, in that regard. So I think it's, just again with that commitment, and you're on the right path, and then you get through the tough times. Any other questions for Brad? Right in the back.
About starting the business, you mentioned that it was something new with the internet, and how it was really new. How were you so sure about starting it with such a new technology?
You're not sure, but that comes back to the commitment. Becky had the inspiration that it was a good idea, and it took me a week after her to figure it out. And then once I was committed, and then I just started to work on it. I just started to figure out a plan, and I started to work on it. I did a lot of what this guy here's doing, where he had all the ideas. I had 9 ideas, and I researched the ideas, and I came up with data security. I kept looking at the Gartner research, and it said that this was going to be a huge market, and it was pretty untapped, and the categories weren't even well defined. So I thought, hey, there's a lot of room here for us to make some money. And that's why I
Online
did.
shopping, who knew?
Yeah.
We didn't know. Yeah, back in the day, nobody was doing that.
Yeah. So there's one story I want to tell about Becky, and I just have to tell you because
time do we have?
we got time.
Okay.
So it's important because your spouse really makes or breaks a business. And I started out with a partner, and he was at a different stage of life. His kids were older and they were going to college, and so he really couldn't he couldn't not have some money for a while. And we went for 2.5 years not drawing any salary because the business couldn't afford it. And partners is a different thing, but I kind of went through this whole business, and I was going along, and I was trying to get money, and I had angel capital, and we had some cash in the bank, and then I got a home equity line on our house, and then I decided I need an SBA loan, and it was $500,000. And it takes forever. I kept trying to get this loan, and the bank was always dragging their feet. And then one day I woke up, and the guy from the bank came, and I signed the papers, and then I realized I just committed every possession we had as collateral, and I forgot to mention it to my wife. And I thought, well, that's bad. I'm a bad husband. Right now, I felt like I was a really bad husband. And I thought, well, how am I going to broach this subject? Because I just messed up, right? I didn't think these guys were going to do it, and all of a sudden they're here and they did it, and I forgot to talk to her about it. And so I thought, well, how am I going to do this? So we went to the video store, and I tried to be, pretty. We tried.
A long time ago.
Yeah, this is a long time ago. Well, it was DVDs. It was still DVDs. It wasn't that long ago. So I kind of mentioned to her, by the way, I had to sign personally on a $500,000 loan. And she said, oh, that's okay. It'll be okay. And I was like, I got off that easy, right? I mean, I thought I was in big trouble and we were going to get a divorce or something. And so I was really glad that happened. But that's all about having your spouse help you. Your spouse has to back you up on these, because if not, you're in trouble.
I need the mic now. That was one of my good days, so I don't want to overpaint this rosy picture, because that was a good day. But it's so true. You've got to get your spouse, if you have one, or you need to get that commitment and work on it together, because if you're not in it together, I think things will go badly.
Yeah, it never would.
And there was some youthful optimism there. That helps.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, and the other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention, is I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if you've read it. It's been out for a long time. But it talked about going and working at other companies and getting all this experience. So being in sales, getting to be a product manager, maybe being in development, being in some of these areas I think is really important, because it helps you learn on somebody else's dime. And then when it's time for you to do your business, you understand how things should be working. And I think that's really important. And I did a lot of that the best I could. Okay, yes?
Did you try and go in those different positions, or did luck just have it that you thought in those different positions?
I actually tried to go in some of those positions. So I worked at WordPerfect as a regional manager in Toronto. And WordPerfect wasn't a real true sales organization. It was more of an advocate. So you'd show up and people would call and they'd say they want you to help them, and you'd show up, but you didn't really have a sales quota. So I really struggled. That's where I've struggled the most in the company, because I didn't have a real sales experience.
I'm going to give him a water bottle.
Okay, that's a great idea. And then I worked as a product manager, and that was really good. And I had done a lot of tech support work. All the neighbors in my neighborhood have asked me to help them on their computers, so I've done a lot of tech support. So, I've done a lot of those things. And when we first started the business, it was literally me and 2 of my priests that had been in my priest quorum that I had to pay a quarter more than they got as computer science tutors. And so I paid them like $9.25 an hour, I think. And it was just us. And so if they weren't there, they were in class, I was answering the phone and I was taking support calls. So I had to do all those things at the very beginning. But the sales area is where I really struggled the most, I think. Yes?
What have you done to separate yourself from the competition?
So what we did is I worked at WordPerfect, and WordPerfect had one big advantage, and that is the tech support was free. And so you called up and they were free and they would help you. They'd even help you with your printer driver. If it wasn't their problem, it was the printer. They would help you and they would get you there. And so that's what we did. If you call SecurityMetrics today, no charge, will help you no matter what. And that's how we increase loyalty and we keep our customers with us. That's probably the biggest thing. The other thing we do, and it sounds counterintuitive, is we do most of our sales on the phone by real people because you can find the needs quickly and you can help them fast and it's efficient for them and they'll sign up. And then you can tell them about the free support, call as many times you want, and then they become, again, loyal customers. So it's all about the customer experience. Yes?
What can you tell us, what have you learned about the church from the work you've done?
What have I learned about the church? I love that question. What have I learned about the church? From a security standpoint?
Whatever you've learned.
Okay. Well, I worked here. So I worked at the church for a while. I worked, it's a long story, but I worked at Auxiliary Services in there as an IT manager. And the church really didn't understand security. When I first started the business, the first thing I did is come to the church, and I said, hey, do you want to use this to BYU? And they said, no, we're secure, we're good. And it was about a year and a half later, they got hacked, and it was a big hack. It was a ticketing system. And I had scanned that server, and I knew that it was really, really in bad shape. But they, so that was something that, it's hard for BYU because they get so many students with good ideas that talk to them that they don't know what they need and what they don't need. So that was one of the things I learned. It was hard. And then as time went on, they started to pick up the services and we used them. And then they used one of our competitors after us, and then they came back to us and said that they were glad they were using us again. So I mean, it's fun. The church does a good job, but they get a lot of people coming to them. Yes?
So how did you live when you weren't collecting a salary for 2 years?
How did we live, Becky? How did we live? Extravagantly, say that.
Well, we had saved a little bit of money, and we had been blessed to have our house paid for. We still live in the same house, actually. I think that experience taught us that whatever we do, we're going to have a roof over our head. So we still have our same house we bought when we first got married, and for what seems like a ridiculously small amount of money now. But so we had our house paid for, so that was really nice, and our kids were young, and so we didn't have a lot of expenses, but that's where I talk about preparedness, because my mom raised me and I'm really thrifty when I need to be. So I think we clipped a lot of coupons. I mean, we just did a lot of things, and we saved. And so even now we still save. I mean, it's easy to think, oh, I got this made, but we are savers to this day, and I think that experience taught us that. And so having that savings is what we drew on, and that was invaluable.
Yeah, we lived cheaply. We didn't do anything that cost money. I mean, we bought all of our stuff, we bought cheap food. Can we give her one of the white,
Yes.
cool mugs? She's asked lots of good questions. Yes?
How long does it take for you to repay that or get enough for that $500,000?
Oh, that's a great question. You're a very practical man.
Give him a T-shirt.
Yeah, we got to give him at least a T-shirt. Do you already have a T-shirt? No. Okay, give him a T-shirt.
If you get the wrong size, come down and
We started to do well, so we were doubling. We were doubling every year, and so we started to do well. We got to a point where we could start to pay back the money. And so we got the Bank of America contract, I think. Is that who it was? I think it was Bank of America. But we got a couple contracts, and then it wasn't hard at all for us to pay that money back. But we needed it. We didn't know if we were going to make payroll. I mean, those are real situations where you don't know if you can make payroll, and I wasn't paying myself. Jerry's the one that made me pay myself, and then Jerry's the one that went and came to me and said, you need to make the most money in the company. And I said, I can't pay myself that much. I can't afford it, right? And so he said, yes, you can. And so he would, and that's why you need advisors. You need people to help you, because if you don't, you won't look after yourself.
Jerry was very optimistic, too.
He was very
Kept us
optimistic.
going sometimes.
Yes.
So how about how long, like from the loan to how much amount of time was it?
I think we were a couple of years.
Probably 2 or 3 years.
Jerry says 3 or 4. So, 3 or 4. But I mean, when it was time for us to pay it back, we just paid it off. We didn't worry about it. Yes.
If you could change one thing or a few things, if you could start over, and what things would you change?
That's a great question. Let's give him one of the cool white bottles, too.
I don't know the answer.
The thing I would change the most is sales. I was weak in sales. I didn't have a good sales background. I was the regional manager for Toronto for WordPerfect, and WordPerfect in the day was cool. And so I felt like I had the sales experience, but I really didn't have a quota. And so I didn't know how to handle the quotas. I didn't know how to give a kicker. I didn't know any of those things. And so really I struggled. When I got salespeople in at the beginning, I was cheap, and they were cheap because they weren't the best salespeople, right? But I didn't have enough experience and knowledge to help them understand and train them like Toyota would, get them into a place where they were really being successful. So if I was to do something different, it would really be get a better salesperson or get better sales experience on my own before I started my business. Yes?
So this is kind of for both of you, but did you guys ever work together considering you had a technology background before business?
Yes, we did work together. So we built the building on 1600 North. You drive by 1600 North on the right side, if you're heading north, is the SecurityMetrics building, and that's Becky's baby. So Becky, if you see that building, it's a 5-story building, and my sister and Becky, we met every week, and we got to hang out, right?
Yeah, we did.
And we got to hang out, and she picked all of the colors, her and my sister picked all the colors, and all the furnishings and everything were all done, and so we got to work together, but I don't think you ever got paid, did you?
No.
She never paid herself.
But, and now, like I said, I do manage events, so I plan all of our parties. I like to do parties, so that's my thing, and to help with the culture piece. But in the beginning, I did. I had a major in finance here, and so I kept all of our books, made all of our payroll, and it got a little too stressful, I will admit, so I bowed out at some point. It just got to be too much between the two of us and our relationship, and me having to keep going and telling him I needed more money, and he didn't have it. So we had to find somebody else, but it was a good couple of years I was right in there, and I feel like, you know, to his credit, he's always treated me as an equal partner, and I always know what's going on in the business, I know a lot, and I stay really involved. And I think when you have a thing like that, it's good to keep your spouse in the loop, because if anything should happen to him, heaven forbid, and I was left to make a decision, I didn't ever want to be in a situation where I didn't understand anything about it and just be at the mercy of whatever advisors I could find. So I've always kept, a real close, I would say, contact with what's happening and the finances and everything about it.
But my mother had to work. My dad died when I was a kid, and so my mother had to work, so she was out of the house. So it was really important to me that she could stay in the house. So the whole time we've been married, she has not worked. She's worked more as a hobby at SecurityMetrics than really being a working person. Is that the right way to say it?
It's true. But I think there's a lot of work you do in the home that I think, behind the scenes, you've got to have that support, or you're, the living frugally and all those things. I think you make your contribution just in a non-paying way.
Oh, that's right. Yes?
You mentioned like your sister working with her. Did you guys have a lot of family working for you in the beginning, or like your kids and adopted?
Once you start a business, you will have lots of family working with you in your business, just to be warned. And that's where the employee management becomes an issue. Because it's really a pain to fire your sister-in-law, and I had to do that, and it's true. And so what do you do when you have to...
We're still friends now.
We're still friends.
Road, but we're still friends.
Yeah. So,
But, the ironic thing is we actually, in 2009, when lots of people were unemployed, was when we really grew. And so we took on a lot of people in our neighborhood, a lot of people in our family, because they just didn't have any other work, and we needed people, and so it was sort of a scramble to ramp up. And, so there is some challenges that come with living amongst people that work with you too. And so we live amongst a lot of people, even some of my best friends who were looking for work. I said, well, go to SecurityMetrics, maybe you'll find something. I don't find them a job per se, but they go get it on their own, but now they work there. So it's, my advice is always be honest. And Brad's a very honest person, and he just has a heart of gold. And when you have that, you know that no matter what happens, they're not going to be mad at you, because he's just a really great guy.
So in 2009, 2010, I think we had over 40 people in our stake that worked at SecurityMetrics because you couldn't find a job. And so it was kind of fun, but it was kind of weird, right? People would come in to work there for the first time, and they go, I know everyone here. And we said, yeah, we'll have fun. Let's just have fun. And so we worked hard, and it worked. It can be fun. But my bishop does our audits. And so I meet with him every 2 weeks on one-on-ones, and we have discussions, and I was a bishop before he was, and we sit and talk about stuff, and it's just fun, but you have to make sure that you're handling that properly, and you've got to be forthright and honest with everyone. Any other
One other thing I'll say is if you do, get a business, get growing, let your managers manage, and that's what Brad does. And so if there's an issue with an employee, anyone, whether they're family or not, Brad doesn't usually intervene. He treats them like anyone else and just lets the managers manage their employees.
That's as much as she knows, but there are certain people in our ward that are struggling, that need help, that we keep there as employees because they need the job, right? So you have to play it both ways, and it's a hard, employee management, I brought it up for a reason. It's really touchy, it's hard, it's probably one of the hardest things you'll have to do.
2 minutes, so last question.
Okay, last question. Oh, yes.
After so many years of being in this business, and so many different competitors in the market, how do you, what do you do to find new ways to pivot and stay in front of the competition? You talked about something you do already, like the free tech support, but how do you come up with those ideas?
So the question is, how do we pivot when the market continues to change? It's been a really dynamic market. It's a great question. What we do is we just listen to our customers. Listen to our customers, get the feedback, and then we have a really good product management, and we have a really good development group, and a really good marketing group, and so we get that information out very quickly, and we make changes to the product, and we stay ahead of the competition. Okay, thank you, everyone. Hope that was beneficial. Thanks for all your attention today.